Happy holidays, Geekscapers! Oh my gosh. Here we are. Hello, Jackie.
Hello, Joshua.
We are here. We have ditched our typical co-hosts. I've ditched Joe from Fright School.
And I kicked Marissa to the curb.
And so we're doing, what is this? Are we Jersey School, Ghoul School, Fright Ghoul?
School. Yeah, Jersey. I think our chat is Jersey School.
Yeah, Jersey School. That's what we're doing today. So we're just
we're the Fright Ghouls today.
We are bringing it together, and we are here at the 4th annual Geekscape Holiday Livestream-Tacular, raising money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central and Northern New Jersey. So I hope whenever this is airing that you are enjoying 24 hours of nonstop comedy and podcasts and shows and music and comedy sketches, all the things. And right now you are tuning in for an unabashed love fest to The Exorcist 50th anniversary edition. And so, yeah, I thought it would be fun because this movie was released on December 26th, 1973. So in my opinion, it is a Christmas film. It is a holiday film. And in fact, according to an article I found, The Strange Path to a Massive Success for the Unlikely Christmas Smash. The Exorcist, when adjusted for inflation, is second only to Titanic for the biggest film released during the Christmas period in the last 50 years. That's from 2020.
I mean, blood is red and pea soup is green. So if we're going thematically color scheme, it's a Christmas movie.
You know what? That is a great point. I tried so hard. You can't even see the background. This background is like a red image of like the Exorcist, of like Father Merrin standing in like the, that iconic image, but you can't even see it. So it just looks like some weird blood splatter behind us. I tried to find something like Christmas themed. I thought, can I find like Linda Blair wearing a Santa hat or something?
I honestly had that thought. I'm like, I'd love to do the green screen background with like Pazuzu in like a Christmas hat right here, just chilling on my shoulder.
I think that would be amazing. They need to make that happen. I mean, everything else these days is spooky Christmas stuff. All right, so yeah, we are here celebrating 50 years of The Exorcist, which is just so mind-blowing to me. It's one of these like horror films that is still so beloved, and it was appreciated in its day. It was nominated for 10 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Set Direction, Film Editing, Sound. I think it won for sound and something else. The screenplay. That's right. That William Peter Blatty, who wrote the original novel. Yes, we're bookworms, so we're going to try our best not to make this all about the Exorcist novel instead of the film. Which actually the book is 71, right? So it's over. So. Yeah, it's 52 years old.
To be perfectly honest, I mean with William Peter Blatty writing the screenplay, the book is, or the movie, I should say, extremely faithful to the book. There's not a ton that happens in the book that you don't see on screen. So they didn't really, there was no experimental phase there. Like it's fairly faithful to it.
Yeah, no, yeah, very, very true. And it's such a great book and such a great film. And so that's what we're going to do. We're just going to basically gush about The Exorcist for the next however long we chat. And so, Jackie, what is it? What is it about The Exorcist for you?
I think for me, I saw the movie before I read the book, and I think this was one of those movies, and the reason that I probably saw it, probably in middle school, was this was like a taboo movie because it's The Exorcist and it's scary. I have some devout Christian members of my family that's like, you can't even talk about this movie because if you talk about the movie, it opens you up for possession kind of thing. And yeah, so like it was just one of those like almost like kind of a like in at least for me in my world, like kind of a faces of death thing where it's like, you hear people talking about it and it's like, well, I gotta see it. If you're telling me not to watch it, then I have to watch it. So I truly don't remember the first time I saw it, but I was definitely middle school aged. And I remember, it's for a movie, for it being one of my favorite movies, it is a slow burn because really not a ton happens in the beginning part, for my standard of movie. Like I'm very much like I want like a hack and slash within the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But there was just something very, I don't know, there was something really beautiful about the world building of we meet Chris McNeil and her daughter, and then on the other side of it, we meet, Father Dyer and Father Karras and everything that went on. And there was just something visually appealing about it. There was something really beautiful about the story. And I mean, and then, when stuff hits the fan and it gets really exciting. I remember really being taken aback that like certain scenes, obviously the scene with the crucifix. I remember, I don't know. I just remember being like, again, that's an age when I'm still going to, I'm great being raised Catholic. I'm going to CCD, and I'm like, that might be one of the most extreme things I had ever seen. Um, but still, I was like, "But I like it." Like, I don't know what that says about me, but I'm like, I still like the movie. It doesn't turn me off from the movie that there was this really intense scene with a little girl. And then, probably not long after that, like, early high school was when I read the book for the first time, and, like, that was kind of a life-changing experience because for the first time ever, I was like, "This is my favorite book in the whole wide world." Like, this is without a doubt my favorite book, and honestly, I would say at least over the last 10 years or so, I read the book once a year. Like, it is legitimately my favorite
Yeah.
book. If I need background noise and I'm at work, like, I can just put on the audiobook, and I can literally just pick a spot anywhere on the tracker, and I'll just go from there, wherever I land, because it's like I know the story so well that, yeah, it'll just be background noise. And I know that we have talked about this before. The Exorcist movie, that's a comfort movie for me.
Yeah.
Some people put The Office on, over and over and over again. The Exorcist is one of those movies where I will just, yeah, it's like a little bit of home. It's like, okay, I love you. This is nice. I do. I love it so much.
Yeah, similar vibes. One, I love that this movie came out like during the holiday season because it's like, yeah, nothing says Christmas like, ostensibly a child masturbating with a crucifix,
Mhm.
very horrifically. It's like, what were they thinking? It's like it's so brilliant. But yeah, it's it's one of those movies that I also do not remember the first time I saw it. My mother loved it growing up, and she would like enthusiastically tell us when we'd be around like her sisters, my aunts, how they would like reenact stuff from it, when they were kids. So it was just one of those movies that, yeah, I'm sure that I saw it like everything that we've talked about throughout the years, way too early and probably way too young. I remember actually getting the book. I have a very firm memory of seeing the film when I was in fourth grade. So this was 94. So I was like, yeah, 9 or 10. Depending on the time of year. I can't remember exactly, but I remember I was in fourth grade because I remember the school, I remember the apartment that we lived in. And down the street lived a relative, and they had a copy of the book, like old, battered, that kind of maroon, I think like the one you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
one of those copies of it. And I took it and I read it at that age. After I remember seeing the film, and then I didn't know it was based on a book because at that time, it just wasn't. Um, you're right. It is kind of slow, and I do remember my memories of it growing up were really just about like the exorcism scenes and like the scenes
Mhm.
of like the violence and that stuff. Not really like the beginnings that are in. Is it Iraq or Iraq?
Mhm.
But like those scenes, it's like I kind of remember like the dogs fighting or whatever they are, whatever kind of canid animal they are that are fighting. Like I remember some of those things, but for me, it was always about like what you're saying, like the gore stuff of it, right?
Yeah.
The exciting things. So, so I remember that, but then I definitely remember getting a copy of the book and reading it and like taking it to school with me, and a teacher being like, why are you, what are you doing with that? Because I was like in fourth grade. So yeah, but it's definitely same thing. It's become like I don't visit it every year. I did for a long time. When I first read it, because it was one of the few books that I just kept from that relative's house. I was like, this is mine now. And I read it over and over and over again for several years. This is going to explain so much to the people watching this that know me. They're like, yes, this tracks. 10 years old, rereading The Exorcist. But nowadays, yeah, it's definitely one of those comforts. Who does the audiobook? Is it by anybody famous or?
No, the one that I listen to, someone keeps illegally uploading it on YouTube, and it's William Peter Blatty that is doing the audiobook. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to get that. Because I have like I have Pet Sematary read by Michael C. Hall. Who did Dexter. His voice is, I mean, it's just so amazing, like in your ears. Kathy Bates read Silence of the Lambs. So it's like I've heard like celebrities doing it. So I was wondering, man, The Exorcist would be a really good one for somebody to
like I said, the one that I always go to is it's William Peter Blatty. Slightly off topic, one of the best audiobooks that I've listened to, Eyes of the Dragon, Stephen King's book.
Yeah.
The audiobook is done by Bronson Pinchot, Balki Bartakamus himself.
Yeah.
It is so good. It is the dramatic change when he turns into Flag. He's scary. It's so good. It's such a good listen.
Huh.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah. You never would.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
Thank you. And hopefully those of you watching, good audiobook recs, like let us know what are some good ones. Oh my gosh, sorry, my cat is like gonna, come here, say hi to all the people. Look, it's a kitty. And now donate more money.
There you go.
He's been trying to get at my hat and this ball all night, so he's very upset. What was I going to say? Oh, I think I also have I have a version of Carrie read by Sissy Spacek also, which is cool. So anyways, but yeah, so I'm glad that you also have love for the book because, over on Fright School, I'm always trying to like turn us more and more into like a book podcast, and Joe will not have it. He will not entertain that. So I'm glad that we can chat about the book itself. Any memories of watching The Exorcist around the holidays? Because like that's like another thing for me is like I definitely remember watching this as a kid at this time of year, and being like, oh yeah, I gotta watch The Exorcist. It's Christmas.
You know what? I think it's only been in recent years that I've done it. Like I said, I mean it's a movie that plays probably once a month, honestly. But I think as far as like, oh, it's December, we have to watch I think that's only been kind of in the recent memory of just kind of like, it's December in honor of it. It's one of those like in honor of, sure, I have to watch it kind of things. I don't think it's something that had really been prevalent before for me. But I would say in the last couple of years, I do make it a point to try to throw it into the creepmas mix of things that I'm watching.
Yeah, I love that, and I guess that's too like knowing that it was like released around this time. It's like, oh, it's the 33rd anniversary. It's the 46th anniversary. Gotta watch The Exorcist.
Oh yeah,
any excuse to watch The Exorcist.
Yeah, pretty
much. And there's some really like I agree. It is very. There are parts of it that I also do find comforting, like that scene where Chris decides to walk home and like Tubular Bells plays for the first time. There's like a part of me that's like, I wish life was always in that scene. Like the way the trees are, the Halloween, the trick-or-treaters, even the creepy nuns.
Yeah, well, that evokes the same thing for me that the beginning of the movie Halloween does, when Jamie Lee Curtis has her books and she's walking and it's it's autumnal and the leaves and where I have grown up my whole life here in South Jersey, like that's that's the season. We get the crunchy leaves, we get the crisp weather. So because that's my favorite time of year, because I'm quite convinced that I have the reverse seasonal affective disorder where, you know, it's the summertime that brings me down. Once the fall and winter hit, like I get to be me again. I feel the best I can be in those months. So like that part of Halloween had always really given me kind of the warm fuzzies. And you're right, that beginning scene when she's walking home and, you know, there's the nuns, there's the kids in costume, there's the crunchy leaves, because obviously she's in DC. So I agree. That's one of those just very like, it kind of just feels like home. Like it's just a very nice feeling that I get from that part.
Yeah, talking about the crunching leaves, like I love this film too because you know there's like moments that things are really quiet and then it's just loud, you know, like the dogs like fighting
Mhm.
and like the rats in the attic, you know, no rats, um, and just some of the sounds of it are, yeah, it's really, they're able to make certain things sound super jarring that are like, you know, like the trains blowing by or like other, you know, it's just like the sounds of the film too are really comforting to me. So again, I like to put it in and just like listen to it.
Yes. Yes. And I should just kind of point out, and I've talked about this on Jersey Ghouls, that I think that what I'm assuming it's the studio or maybe it was William Friedkin, I don't know, but in the year 2000, when they re-released the movie, basically director's cut, and it
Right.
came to the
Yeah.
theaters, and it was The Exorcist, the version you've never seen,
Never seen.
which is, I mean, obviously the superior version. It is the best version. It's what I have and what I watch all the time. But they added a handful of scenes. They enhanced other scenes, and even with the little enhancements of, you know, when the lights are flashing at one point, and we get the image of Pazuzu on the hood of the oven, kind of thing, just
Uh,
like the background blink and you miss it Pazuzu shots.
mhm.
Um, it's just such an effective movie. It's certainly not for everyone. I know plenty of horror fans that it's just not a movie for them. I know people that think the movie is boring. Even when we get to the exorcism part, like
Yeah.
it's boring, 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 gratuitous, boring. And I'm just, you know, again, it's art, it's subjective, to each their own.
Stage.
You know, like I'm gonna be nice about it and just be like,
Yeah.
sure thing, buddy, no problem.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I remember going to the theater to see the version you've never seen. I went with my mother, of course, and my best friend in high school, Lindsay, and we went to see it. And yeah, it was such a, because like the spider walk scene and things like that were like the stuff of like legend. You know, it's like we knew they were out there. And this is before children, young ones, if you're watching. You know, this was before like YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So we had like pictures. Ah, there you go. Oh,
There we
that's
go.
so
Let me see if
cool.
I
Is that like
yeah.
NECA or something? Who did
Yeah,
that?
I can't remember if it was
Oh,
ooh, there she
oh,
goes. Ah,
she went to chew on Sharon's
she did.
leg.
She did. Yeah, I can't, you know what? I got this a while ago and
Oh,
I
that's
can't
really cool.
remember. Yeah, I can't remember where. Oh, she's so pretty. I can't remember which company, if it was NECA or not. It might have been Mezco. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
But I love it. It's one of my favorite little toys that I have on my shelf of toys. And actually that's one of my favorite parts of the book. Because I
yeah,
love, you know, the image is so jarring when you see it on screen, but I love in the book how they say that, you know, she's following Sharon down the stairs. They kind of like a
yeah,
spider. And she's talking about how she's like trying, like, you know, her tongue is flashing out, like she's trying to lick her ankles as she's walking down,
yeah.
and she's following her. And oh, I remember reading that, and that's one of those moments where I kind of like shut the book, put the book down, took a deep breath. It's just a story, it's not real. So yeah, definitely one of my favorite scenes. And I remember Marissa and I, actually, we were in college in the year 2000 and we went to see it together. And that's one of those moments where like the whole theater, all of us audibly screamed when that
Yeah.
moment happened. Oh, it's so good.
Uh, that's so cool. I love that you had that you and Marissa had that together. That's so
Mhm.
cool. Yeah, I do remember seeing it. I was going to ask you, so I'm glad that you brought it up because I was curious about how you felt about that. Because obviously we can be very committed to like the theatrical cuts of things, and and the way that we first experienced them. So I was curious how you felt about the, the updates and like this, the version you've never seen. I go back and forth about which one I want to watch because sometimes I do just want to like remember like what those early memories were of watching it,
Mhm.
but I always like miss the spider walk scene. So it's like I wish I had a
Yeah.
version that just had that inserted and
Yeah.
then
I think that honestly, it's one of those a lot of my appreciation for it comes from the fact that they didn't try to reboot the movie. They were
right.
just like, here's this amazing classic movie. Here's the director's cut. And I kind of
Yeah.
wish they would do that more with other movies. Like, I don't need a remake. Give me a director's cut. Like, I don't, and if
Mm,
it's one of those like top tier movies, nobody gives a shit. Give me like the 4-hour double Blu-ray disc that I could watch at home at my own leisure kind of thing. Like, I will. Like if I really like the movie, we don't need to remake it. We don't need to, there no new vision needs to be done. Just give me a good director's cut. Even it doesn't matter. Give me the scenes that got cut out. Give me characters that didn't exist. There's so many director's cuts of movies that I've seen that I think I like a lot more. Again, granted, we're going to add on, an hour or two sometimes. What was it
right.
recently that I watched? I think it was Apocalypse Now. I think I had watched the director's cut, and
Oh yeah.
apparently it adds like 45 more minutes to the movie. But it was
Yeah.
good. It was all very good stuff. But yeah, I think 9 times out of 10, I'm going to reach for the version you've never seen. But I think
Yeah.
the version that's streaming is the original version. Like the one that's on like HBO, I think is the original version.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't because I'm the same. I usually go and get the disc that I
Yeah.
watch it. But I should check actually if it's streaming to see, yeah, what version it is. And I want to, I just to save, the gift for the end because I do want to see talk about Believer before we leave. So I want to wait to talk about that. We're talking about remakes and reboots. So let's get into a little bit of the part of the show that on Fright School we like to say overcomplicating horror. So from The Exorcist is a Clash of Belief Systems by Jason Zanoma. He talks about the religious conviction of bloody story still comes across, but with more dimension. The Exorcist works on multiple fears of the unknown, the confusion of a parent over the changes of a child approaching puberty, intimidating jargon of doctors, but its most important fear, one achieved through the clash of aesthetics between Blatty and Friedkin, stems from the mysteries of faith. It holds on to the anxiety of inexplicable awe in the face of an overwhelming world, something horror and religion share. So part of the conversation about this is that Blatty and Friedkin really clashed quite a bit because Blatty really wanted to preserve like his book, his novel, The Exorcist, is about like the crisis of faith in like Karis and sort of these questions, these bigger questions, whereas like Friedkin, he wanted to make like a horror picture and make something that kind of was talking about other, other things. And so they really kind of struggled with that. And Friedkin, they removed certain scenes that were added back into the version that you've never seen that kind of clarify some things about like the demon's relationship and, uh, you know, uh, kind of give it a little bit more of an ending because like the original cut, it's a little ambiguous. So I'm curious what you think about that and sort of like the religiosity of it and if that played into like your, because in my house, kind of similar. It was like, I grew up with a grandmother who really believed in demons and things that would
Mhm.
possess you. And, there were other family members who kind of felt the same. And so like loving The Exorcist was like a big red flag to them. So I'm
Yeah.
curious about that part of it.
I think, what, honestly, for me, the religious thing was always kind of like it was in the background for me. Because even at like a young age when I was going through, my like CCD and having to do first communion and confirmation and all that. I mean, this is middle school when I
Will
saw
you,
this.
sorry, will you clarify CCD? Is that like catechism stuff
Yeah,
or?
it's basically like mini Catholic school to
Okay.
get your first Holy Communion, and then you get your confirmation where you get your saint name
Okay.
and basically you are an adult in the church kind of thing. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a once a week thing during the school year. Like we would go at night. And yeah, you have to learn certain lessons, and yeah, it's basically your schooling for your rites of passage to be a Catholic.
Yeah, man,
Um,
that'd be so interesting to
yeah,
like love this movie through like a Catholic lens because I didn't like grow up. We were like Southern Baptist and like other, my
yeah. I
grandmother
mean,
grew up with like snake
so
handling stuff. So
yeah. But again, like by the time, like I think I knew, like, I really didn't have a choice. I was told you have to go to CCD, you have to, have your first Holy Communion, you have to be confirmed. I would say by the time I had seen this movie for the first time, around that time, I was already like, organized religion isn't for me. I kind of faked it for the benefit of my parents. And then after, 8th grade is essentially when you get your confirmation, and then your, Catholic schooling in that sense is done. And as soon as that was done, I was like, well, I'm out. And yeah, like it really, like the atheism kind of just kept creeping in more and more and more. For the longest time, I'm like, well, I'm agnostic and maybe something exists, but I'm not gonna like chain myself to any sort of organized religion. And then yeah, like over the years I was like, well, no, I need to accept, it's always been there. Like this is not for me at all. So
yeah,
but at the same time, I do find I find religion interesting. Same thing with ghosts. I don't personally believe in ghosts. I don't personally believe in an afterlife. But if you look at my bookshelf, you would think I'm a liar because half the books on my bookshelf are about hauntings and
yeah,
finding spirits and that. I am wildly entertained by the whole entire subject. I don't
yeah,
believe it, but that's just me. But I still want to get as much knowledge on it. So I would say for me, while the religion aspect was interesting, it was really, especially at the time, just background noise, just something to get me through to the exorcism part. Because
right,
regardless of what they were saying or what they were doing, like I said, especially when I'm like 12, 13 years old watching this movie, I just want to see the fun stuff. I want to see her
yeah,
spit pea soup. Like I think my little brain wasn't quite formed enough to really wrap my head around everything that was happening and what things were meaning, and bringing
right,
in religion and puberty and womanhood and Catholic oppression kind of thing. Didn't really, yeah,
yeah,
that wasn't there that first time. And honestly, even now as I watch it, it's only there now because I'm friends with Marissa and I've heard Marissa talk about it. It's because friends like you, like when I've had actual conversations about the movie, well, then I'm like, okay, so it's more than just, the pea soup. It's more than your mother sucks cocks in hell kind of thing. That's fine.
Do you know what she did, your cunting daughter?
Your cunting daughter.
Yeah. Um, oh man, that just gave me a memory of my mother quoting the movie. Ah, I miss my mom. She was so funny, like quoting this film. Uh, yeah, I think kind of similar. I mean, for me, like again, we were growing up Southern Baptist, so of course there was lots of fire and brimstone, and there was when I was first watching this movie, I believed that there were other things out there. I was young and indoctrinated by
Mhm.
these sorts of things. So now it's kind of similar. It holds this. It's very interesting as an artifact at the time. um and like a lot of what I know about Catholicism is probably through The Exorcist, especially the book, because they do go into a little bit more of like the
Yeah.
mass, and there are some scenes in the book that aren't necessarily in the movie. They're part of the like the fabric of the film, but they just
Yeah.
yeah. So there is, yeah, most of what I know about like Catholics is probably the Exorcist, and little Joe, trying to teach me about things. But I liked how you brought up, some of the other things that it could be about, because again, one of the other big things that happened in 1973 was the passing of Roe v. Wade, which we have now overturned. Uh, um, but so you have this film come out that's this like it's essentially a woman's picture, and that's apparently what William Friedkin said when it opened, that he told Variety it was a women's picture. So it's this life and death struggle for a female body. what was the other thing? Reagan isn't pregnant. For that storyline, go to Rosemary's Baby. But her body is also no longer her own. In the end, medical science proves incapable of helping Reagan, so Chris desperately turns to two Catholic priests to free her child, body and soul, a turn that only solidifies The Exorcist as one great women's film. So I thought if there's anything you remember from from Marissa, because I do know that she tried to infuse you with her powers of the monstrous feminine.
She did. Bringing up Barbara Creed, bringing up monstrous feminine. She brought up it's like a criticism of the film. Or not, I shouldn't say a criticism of the film, but it's just a criticism of the idea that this symbolic moment for Reagan of her being, the exorcism is being performed by two men, so she needs to be saved by men, and also the idea that like her body is going through changes and that it's bad, it's in some way it's dirty. Her her starting her period, like her going through that, like it's a dirty thing that we need to get rid of. And it's funny because when her and I talked about it in the episode that we did, like we kind of clashed ideas, but being removed from that time now and having listened to it and really thought about it, we had different ideas, but I'm blinded by my love for the movie, so I'm like, there is no criticism, there is no constructive criticism, there is no nothing like that. But it's true, like if you can look at it through the lens of it's all symbolic of a young girl, and it's the changing of the young girl to becoming a woman and her coming into her power. And in a sense, that power is being stripped from her because these men are taking it away from her. These men have to swoop in to save her. She cannot save herself. So I'm not doing any of Marissa's academic research justice, but I don't want to be remiss in really congratulating her, because she did do a deep dive into that side of things. So
Marissa and I should like send you and Joe out to try to like reenact some insane thing that Marissa and I have said.
Give us homework. Give us the homework.
I think that'd be really fun, actually, just to see the two of you be like, okay, what was it now? Something about like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre being about like poverty and bullying. What was it? That's the one I always bring up because that really messed with Joe. That and The Abyss, our fight about The Abyss and whether or not it's a horror film, but we can't rehash that here because he's not here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because again, there is, quite a lot of the anti-abortion conversation comes out of religious places. I'm not sure how much like Catholics are responsible for that versus, other denominations, but I mean, there's plenty to go around, right? Of people wanting to control women's bodies and tell them what to do. So I definitely have like full respect for like that analysis. And I think that there's something worth, again, some of horror is anthropology, so we're kind of looking back. We're looking back 50 years and going like, oh shit, like Roe v. Wade happened that year. This is going down. We're in like the midst of this massive change in feminism. There's all this conversation about women's empowerment happening as we get it, as we're moving through the 70s, obviously. I mean, that those conversations have been happening, but this new wave emerging, right? And so we have all these like women, especially in the wake of Betty Friedan's, the feminine mystique, and in the 50s and then in the 60s and 70s. So we're just in this like really intense time for women. And so, yeah, you have this film about, a young girl possessed and, having these Catholic entities fighting over her body. So, yeah, I think there's definitely something worth like looking back and saying, man, how did this film get made, get out like during the holidays?
Yeah.
In such an important year in for women at the time. I think it's very interesting to interrogate.
It is. And I mean also we've been talking a lot about Reagan, but I have to.
Mm.
Chris McNeil is one of the most
Yeah.
badass moms in horror. And
Yeah.
here's another Marissa thing that the mothers are often portrayed as crazy, hysterical, psycho,
Mhm.
the classic words that are attached to a
Right.
woman that shows emotion. But I loved her performance in this movie. I love the character of Chris McNeil. She's not as fleshed out as she is in the book. But she is strong enough. And just to bring to the point of the times of the movie, like you can see her being dismissed by doctors.
Yeah.
She says she goes back and forth between doctors and psychiatrists and doctors and psychiatrists, and she keeps being dismissed. And that's not something that, quite frankly, has resolved itself. There are still in 2023 plenty of women that are dismissed by their doctors. If you
Right.
go, oh, my leg is cut off, they're like, well, you're overweight and you probably have your period. It's like, no, my leg got cut off. That's why it's
Right.
bleeding. Well, but it's probably your period.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
still does happen. But
Do you have a
I look,
psychiatrist? Are you on
yeah,
medication? Maybe you should be on meds.
you should be on medication. But I love the fact that Chris won't back down. I love that
Yeah.
she's pursuing, Father Karras. Like she says, my daughter needs an exorcism. And he's like, that just doesn't happen anymore. Like we now know about mental health and we know about so much more how the brain works. And she was like, I love the line where she's like, you could give me the absolute double, the 100% twin of my Reagan. And I can tell you that is not my daughter. So I love her
Yeah.
strength and her conviction to try to do what she can by Reagan. And when Marissa and I were talking about it, I said one aspect that I will never understand that only, someone like Marissa can. I'm like, I don't know what it's like to sit back and watch my child be in some sort of pain or illness or whatever the
Mhm.
situation that you
Yeah.
can't fix, that you as a
Right.
mother can't fix. All you could do is try your best to comfort them and make them be as comfortable as possible. But yeah, the character of Chris McNeil, Ellen Burstyn, is just she instantly became one of my favorites. And there's not a whole lot of movies that I can name that I've seen her in, but the few that I have, I absolutely adore. Like she's one where we'll just go ahead and we'll pin that she's a national treasure. And Chris McNeil is seriously one of the most badass moms in horror movies.
I agree. Absolutely. I think one, she's a great example, especially at the time, of a woman being able to be single. She's on her own. She's raising Reagan, without obviously there's scenes like it's very
Mm-hmm.
tense between the father, right? And there is a little bit more development of that in the book. You're
Yeah.
right, and other things about Chris. But she's successful clearly in the film. She's like a movie star. People want her autograph. People recognize her. All of that. But she makes time to come home to her daughter. She's not neglecting her or anything like that. It's not really this cost of like her. Her career at the expense of her daughter. She's like
Right.
built like a home and built a place, and it's like I can have a job, I can come home and be with my child. So it's like, yeah, I agree, and just her like toughness throughout, like when she's like screaming at the people of like what like what am I supposed to do? Like she's seen every goddamn doctor, she's everything. It's like yeah, she's so yeah, she's a good mama.
Yes.
And Ellen Burstyn was put through hell, making that movie. She like broke her
Mm-hmm.
coccyx or something, or maybe didn't break it, but like injured it. It's in the film. Like, there's
Yeah, it's
this,
yeah,
man, she really
again,
goes through it.
I try to, not to be blinded by my love. But yeah, again, William Friedkin maybe did not execute the best practices. Yeah, the scene in the movie that where actually the scene when Ellen Burstyn got hurt, that is the cut that they used in the film. So it's
Yeah.
actually her screaming in pain, grabbing her back because they yanked her on her wire too hard. And yeah, she I think suffered. I think same thing with Linda Blair. Linda Blair suffered a
Yeah.
back injury. Yeah, like keeping the set, at ridiculously cold temperatures so we could see their breath. And I guess it's a form of method directing that I don't know.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
standards and practices have hopefully changed for the safety of and for actors, but yeah. And again, you know, it's tough to say that because I will defend this movie, and I'm like, I love it so much that I'm like, I know that sucked, but it's such a good movie. But I love it so much.
I agree. You know, it's one of those things that, yeah, it's there are you know, there's lots of movies that we love that like are, you know, when they're made under these conditions, you know, absolutely, and we could you know, fuck you all for that, people who made this film, but also it adds such this power to the film. Yeah, I don't really know what to say.
Yeah.
You know, but so moving on. You know, but I love Ellen Burstyn, and I hope her coccyx is fine. And I fucking love her in The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood.
Yes.
Have you ever seen that?
I have. That's the thing. I've seen her in The Exorcist. I've seen her in Divine Secrets of the
Not
Yaya.
such a good mama in that one, but
nah.
but
And
she's
then
hilarious.
she was in the remake of The Wicker Man.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know, I haven't seen that in a really long time. I should rewatch that. Especially now that Nicolas Cage, I feel he's getting his moment.
Yeah, that's
you
what
know?
he gets into. He wears a bear skin and punches a lady in the face. It's so good.
Speaking of, you know, all right. So the one last thing before we're going to start wrapping up is kind of a little bit with what you were talking about power. So another part of the New York Times analysis was kind of bringing in this queer conversation, which, you know, that's what we do over here in Fright School. We talk a lot about queer stuff. Gay. And they were talking about how The Exorcist resonates as queer is because it's about a child consumed by an entity that the church is called on to excise, a hideous intersection of metaphorical queerness and real trauma that sounds a lot like conversion therapy. This is The Exorcist. This is a subversively queer movie by Eric Piepenburg. Sorry, Eric. Hopefully I said that right if you're listening. Reagan wasn't an innocent girl overcome by an old demon. She's a young woman with new rage who gave voice to queer people. I would add also women who were tired of being told by religion, parents, medical professionals that they were sick, need to be cured. So her message to the church and her well-meaning mom was prophetically queer. Back off, I've got power now. Again, I'd also add like more of this feminist chant as well from like young women at the time, especially with you know, Roe v. Wade passing in '73 of like, you know, we have power and we're going to take, because queer rights also had, you know, major shifts forward in this time as well. So you kind of have this intertwining of like the feminist movement and the LGBTQ plus queer movement. And so I thought that was really interesting because it's not something I have personally thought much about with The Exorcist. So I have thought about the feminist angle, of course.
Right.
That can't be, you can't avoid that in the film. But I thought that was interesting because I was like, I'm not sure if I read exactly that because the demon's definitely not a good thing here. But
Yeah,
I never read it as like a queer reading, but I kind of like that. I like the idea of it.
Well, and again, to reference the episode when Marissa and I were talking about it, we actually did bring up an element of that because we talked about the relationship with Father Dyer and Father Karras.
Yeah, that was also mentioned in this article.
Yeah. Like, you know, their relationship and like honestly, like we're like I can't say I personally I love both those characters. I have such again.
There's like a bromance, you know.
It is,
something,
you know.
there's something.
And when we had one of our situations that we were talking about was, you know, there's a lot of Karras's character is he's lost his faith, and we never really get like a full-on explanation as to like, did something happen? Is it a series of things? Like, why? What is this crisis of faith? And one of our conversations was like, well, maybe it's because something has developed between he and Father Dyer, you know, unspoken as it may be. It could have been that. So that was always our theory, our queer read on it was Father Dyer and Father Karras, you know, maybe nothing ever happened, but there was just that unspoken energy between them. And you know, if anything, we're here for that couple. We love them. We love them so much.
Well, what's his name? Jason Miller he's beautiful. quite frankly. So I mean, I'm here for that too. Actually, I think Dyer's kind of cute as well.
No, yeah, Dyer is absolutely
Miller, and then of course, you know, Jason Patrick was
Mhm.
his son, so it's like, you know, it's like. All right, let's not put that thought into people's heads, but yes, Jason Miller, very beautiful. So I'm here for that. I think he's super cute. Yeah, and it's like, you know, his mother, like the whole situation with her and having to go in. It's like, yeah, it's like in some ways, yeah, his. Sorry, you'd like put it now. It's like I'm gonna have to think more about it. I'm gonna have to watch it again now with this like queer lens, like because I don't think I ever really gave much of a thought to that. So, which I mean, again, I actually think is exciting because I'm always looking for new ways to analyze films and, you know, make them more complicated. It's like, all right, Joe, we got to redo our Exorcist talk because now we got to talk about how Karis is gay. And Marin's like an elder gay who comes to help, you know, save a young budding what do we call it? Fairy queen, you know.
There we go. Yeah.
As Linda Blair becomes like friend to all the gays. Yeah, what is happening now? Okay, all right. But I did think that was really interesting, and I sort of appreciated something that I hadn't thought about. And I mean, I'm constantly like thinking everything's gay. So the fact that I never kind of put that lens on The Exorcist, I was like, I don't know.
No, I do like the thought of Reagan's experience is some sort of conversion therapy. It's an interesting spin. I could rewatch it again. I joke that you know, how Beetlejuice talks about in his movie that he's seen The Exorcist 167 times. I'm like, I think at this point, I've seen it like 168. Like, no offense, Beetlejuice, but I think I've seen it more than you now. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to watch it with that thought in the back of my head.
Yeah. You know, just a new, again, we're always, it's anthropology, it's, you know, our glasses, what we kind of put on in the time that we're in. All right. Before we sign off, what did we think of Believer?
I think that it was
it was the movie.
It was
that was made.
No, I think it was a movie that was made. I said that as far as a possession movie, I said it's very down the middle. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. You know, it was perfectly average for me. Does it stand up anywhere to The Exorcist? No, not even in the same arena. Like, I appreciate some of the Easter eggs and the fan service that they gave us. Not to spoil anything, but that very, very last scene that happens, sure. Did I cry? Absolutely. Because
I got a little verklempt.
But
I totally admit that.
Yeah.
It's a nice moment.
It was a nice moment. And yeah, I cried. And did Marissa make fun of me? Absolutely. But that's par for the course. I'm the sap of the group. She's tough stuff, and I'm the one. I mean, you give me like a good commercial, and I'm like, well, that's really special. I don't. I'm such a sap. But no, yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like if they didn't slap the name The Exorcist on it, that I might have liked it a little more. Like, I think I went in with a little bit of a preconceived notion of like, okay, like this is The Exorcist and you're bringing back Chris McNeil. I liked what they did with her character up until the point where I hated what they did with her character.
Yeah. Like really, this woman has suffered enough.
Yeah. Like, thanks for giving her all this power and purpose and then just taking it away.
Yeah.
But aside from that, like, yeah, it was okay. I don't know that I need to watch it again.
Yeah.
I saw it. I can say that I saw it. That I guess apparently they, you know, Blumhouse has a deal. There's going to be more regardless of how much money that it ended up making.
Yeah, it's like Deceivers coming, like
yeah,
Believer,
there's
Deceiver,
a coming.
Achiever, Reliever. I have no idea. What are they doing?
I don't know. I think that like I saw Believer, and from there probably we'll see if I see any of the other ones. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll
But
probably watch it,
yeah.
because it's like we're constantly consuming horror stuff. But that's kind of how I felt. I'm like, there was some nice sound stuff that did remind me. Like there's like a sequence of dogs fighting and like some
Mhm.
stuff, and like some of the soundscape that they created did very much remind me of The Exorcist, kind of,
Yes.
recreated some of that vibe. But otherwise, yeah, if they would have taken The Exorcist off of it, and just had it, and not had like Chris McNeil and have that kind of storyline, which wasn't a huge part of the movie, really. I mean, they could
No.
probably take that out and it would have just been like, oh, it's a movie about two best friends who get possessed, and the religion spiritual avengers come to fight
They really
these
do.
monsters and these demons, and that's the story,
Yeah.
that's the film. I'm probably, yeah, I agree, I probably would have been like, oh yeah, I like that, it was good enough. It doesn't end on like a necessarily happy note, obviously, and it doesn't end
Yeah.
on like, it had enough complexity that I'm like, oh, this is actually very interesting.
Yeah.
But putting the Exorcist stuff on, I just think gave it such a bar to raise to, especially with like, Heretic has its thing. Legion, I love. I do really love the third Exorcist film, right? That's Legion.
Yeah, it's yeah. Did you read the book Legion?
You know what? I'm so embarrassed to admit that I've not finished it. I do have it. I've been reading it
No,
slowly.
I read it for the first time a couple months ago. And I don't like it.
Okay. All right.
I don't like it. I
So
and
you don't
it,
like? Did you not like the film either? The sequel?
no, I really like the film.
Oh, okay.
The movie I thought was well. I think part of the book is just it was I don't know. I wanted to kind of DNF the book, but I'm like, The Exorcist is my all-time favorite book ever. I'm like, this is the sequel. I have to finish it. And I pushed through. But yeah, like it was just, I don't know. There was a lot that I didn't like about the book. But no, the third movie, it's kind of bananas, and I love George C. Scott
Yeah.
as the cop, and there's just so many scenes that are just visually beautiful, and that
Yeah.
one jump scare is just so iconic. And so yeah, I do like the third movie, but the book was
Yeah, it didn't suck me in. Like, I mean, I remember like starting to read The Exorcist and just being pulled into it. And
yes.
every time I read it, even though it's like same, I know the words, I know where it's going. I'm still the way it's written, it's just so beautiful. So it always pulls me in. Is Heretic as bad as I remember, or should it be revisited? Okay,
No,
because I
you
keep
can't.
thinking I'm gonna rewatch it just for fun, just
Oh,
to
please don't.
see.
No, don't. It was so hard to watch that movie. It actually took me a couple days to watch the movie because I kept just being like, I can't right now. And I would stop it and then I'd have to go
Okay,
back. You don't need to revisit it. It is
all right.
absolute like nonsense, and it has
Okay.
no bearing on the story. You can 100% skip it and go right to The Exorcist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Legion is like its own thing.
Yeah.
Totally. That's very true. I've just been thinking like, oh, maybe I should revisit it just to see like, is it really as bad as people say or that I remember? But
Yeah.
did you watch the series?
I watched the first season.
Yeah, same.
I haven't watched the second season yet. And I didn't dislike the first season. They obviously went down some roads.
Yeah.
I kind of put it in the category of it's like Exorcist fanfic. And
Yeah.
like it can have its place at the table. It's just in that
Oh,
pile over there. Don't come over here. You stay in your little lane over there. Yeah, that's kind of I don't dislike it, which surprises me because like I feel like Jackie from a couple of years ago would have just like MF'd that show completely for what they did. But no, like older, wiser. I literally like it's fanfic to me, and
okay.
it's okay. I liked it enough that I watched the whole entire season. So
Yeah, that was the same. I watched the first season. I enjoyed it enough. I love Gina Davis, so I
yeah,
was like, well,
absolutely.
I'm going to
And
show up just for her. And
Alan, oh, I can't think of his last name
yeah,
from Ferris Bueller, but I do him. I
yeah.
absolutely from
Yeah.
Twister as
And
well.
is Sharon, what's her name? She was in Queer as Folk. She shows up as Chris, the mother. Sharon Gless.
I don't know her name.
Anyways,
Yeah.
it's all right. Anyways,
Anyways,
okay. Well, super fun. Oh my gosh, this was such a great like deep dive. Even though we were cursed because there were supposed to be other panelists today, but the Exorcist curse took them out. So this
lives on.
So it was us. But this was still like super fun to chat with you. Real quick, yay, Reagan, Living Dead doll. I have an autographed Funko Pop of Linda Blair that she signed for me, but I couldn't find it to show off, and so bummer. I also have an autographed copy of her vegan cookbook or something, or vegan book. Maybe it's not a cookbook. I don't know. I just knew it was autographed, so I got it. I didn't read it because I'm not a vegan, but I was happy to support Linda and her quest to save all the animals. So. Thank you for hanging out. Tell folks where to find you.
You can find us on social media and your favorite podcasting app. Just search Jersey Ghouls. You will find us there. You could also head over to jerseyghouls.com and see all the same stuff you see on social media and stuff. Although we have been talking about doing some more blog posts. So
cool.
We will alert you on social media and direct you to our website.
I love that. And as always, you can find Fright School at Fright School on all the things. Thank you all so much. We are here again, 4th annual Geekscape Holiday Livestream-Tacular. I love this. Again, we're raising money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central and Northern New Jersey. And so please consider donating to a very worthy cause. Big Brothers, Big Sisters do like really incredible work. And as a mental health professional, I love the work that those organizations do because we really need that in our community. So I love that Geekscape does this. Love being part of the Geekscape network.
Oh, yes.
Jackie, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this was so fun. Yes, happy holidays. And happy 50th birthday, The Exorcist. Yay!
Oh, the fanfare and the pea soup. Just little images of like pea soup instead of confetti cannons.
Yes. Oh, shoot. I should have planned better. Bye.